Emma's hands trembled as she pushed the wheelchair through the hospital doors for the last time. 6 months ago, she'd walked in on her own 2 feet. Today, she left with half her body numb and a heart that felt just as dead. If you've ever had your entire life change in an instant, stay with me, because what happens next changed everything. Like this video if you've ever felt broken beyond repair, and subscribe to see more stories that prove second chances exist when you least expect them. The accident had taken more than her mobility. It had stolen her confidence, her career as a dance instructor, and any hope for the future she'd once dreamed about. At 32, Emma Mitchell found herself moving back to her childhood home in Mapleton, a small town she'd escaped the moment she'd graduated high school. "You don't have to do this, Mom," Emma said as her mother, Patricia, fussed around the downstairs guest room that had been hastily converted for her arrival. The hospital bed looked alien against the floral wallpaper she remembered from childhood. "Nonsense," Patricia replied, plumping pillows with military precision. "Where else would you go? Besides, the physical therapist in town is excellent. Dr. Reeves says with consistent work, you might regain more function in your left side." Emma nodded, though the words felt hollow. The doctors had been careful never to promise a full recovery. The stroke that had followed her car accident had been severe, leaving her with partial paralysis that might or might not improve. The uncertainty was almost worse than knowing she'd never dance again. The first weeks passed in a fog of pain medication, fitful sleep, and the humiliation of needing help with the most basic tasks. Emma's once athletic body felt like a betrayal, and she avoided mirrors at all costs. Her mother meant well, but her hovering only emphasized how dependent Emma had become. "Honey, Diane from church is stopping by later. She's bringing her nephew who just moved to town. Such a nice young man, a doctor, I believe." Emma recognized the hopeful lilt in her mother's voice. "Mom, please don't. I'm not exactly in dating shape." Patricia waved dismissively. "Who said anything about dating? It's just nice to meet new people." But Emma knew better. In a town the size of Mapleton, every single person under 40 was potential marriage material. Before the accident, she might have humored her mother. Now, the thought of being sized up, pitted, made her stomach turn. When Diane arrived with her nephew in tow, a handsome man with a practiced smile who couldn't quite hide his discomfort at Emma's condition, she forced herself to be polite. But after 20 minutes of his careful avoidance of any mention of her wheelchair, she excused herself, claiming fatigue. Later, she overheard her mother in the kitchen. "She just needs time, Diane. She was always such a beautiful, active girl. This has been difficult." Emma wheeled herself back to her room, tears burning behind her eyes. She wasn't a girl anymore. She was a broken woman with half a working body and a future that looked nothing like she'd planned. The turning point came 3 weeks later when Patricia insisted Emma join her for the community center's spring festival planning meeting. "You can't stay in this house forever," she declared, brooking no argument. The community center was an old converted schoolhouse with a ramp that had been added as an afterthought. Emma struggled to navigate it while her mother chatted with a neighbor, oblivious to her daughter's difficulty. "Need a hand?" The deep voice came from behind her. Emma turned to see a tall man with dark hair streaked with premature gray at the temples. He wore faded jeans and a simple blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. "I'm fine," she said automatically, though she was clearly not. He raised an eyebrow. "Sure. But that ramp's a nightmare. The angle's all wrong. Mind if I just—" He moved behind her wheelchair without waiting for permission. "I said I'm fine," Emma snapped, embarrassment making her voice sharper than intended. "I heard you," he replied calmly. "But I'm already here, and you're about to roll backward. So let's get you up this poorly designed ramp, and then you can go back to not needing help." There was something refreshing about his lack of pity. He didn't speak to her as if she were made of glass. With a sigh, Emma relented, and he pushed her wheelchair up the ramp with ease. "Thanks," she muttered when they reached the top. "No problem. I'm Liam, by the way. Liam Foster. Emma Mitchell. Patricia's daughter. She mentioned you were back in town." Of course she had. Emma fought the urge to roll her eyes. "That's me. The prodigal daughter returns." If Liam noticed the bitterness in her voice, he didn't comment. "Well, welcome back to Mapleton, for what it's worth. It's changed a bit since you left." Before Emma could respond, a small whirlwind in the form of a 7-year-old girl with wild curly hair burst through the doors. "Dad! Ms. Winters says I can be in charge of the face-painting booth if you help." Liam's face transformed with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Did she now? And did you ask nicely, or did you volunteer me without permission again?" The little girl skidded to a halt, noticing Emma for the first time. "Who are you?" she asked with the directness only children can get away with. "Mia, manners," Liam reminded gently. "This is Ms. Mitchell." "Emma," she corrected automatically. "Are you in a wheelchair because you're sick?" Mia asked, eyes wide with curiosity rather than pity. "Mia." Liam looked mortified. But Emma found herself smiling for what felt like the first time in months. "I had an accident," she explained. "Part of my body doesn't work the way it used to." Mia nodded sagely. "My friend at school has a wheelchair sometimes because she gets really tired. She lets me ride on it when the teachers aren't looking." Emma couldn't help but laugh. "I bet the teachers love that." "Mia has a gift for finding loopholes in rules," Liam said with a rueful smile. "Sorry about the interrogation." "It's fine. At least she asked directly instead of staring and whispering." The planning meeting was predictably dull, but Emma found herself watching Liam and Mia. He was clearly a devoted father, patient with his daughter's endless energy while still setting clear boundaries. There was no wedding ring on his finger, and Emma caught herself wondering about Mia's mother before mentally scolding herself. What did it matter? She wasn't in the market for anything. Over the next few weeks, Emma began physical therapy with Dr. Reeves, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who pushed Emma harder than she thought possible. The pain was excruciating, but for the first time since the accident, Emma felt something besides despair, determination. She also kept running into Liam and Mia around town. Mapleton wasn't large, but the frequency seemed beyond coincidence, especially when Liam appeared at the park where Emma had wheeled herself to escape her mother's well-meaning hovering. "Fancy meeting you here," he said, dropping onto the bench near her wheelchair. Mia was already racing toward the playground. "Are you following me?" Emma asked, only half joking. "Actually, we come here every Saturday. Mia burns off energy, I get a moment of peace." He stretched his long legs out in front of him. "But I won't deny I was hoping to run into you again." Emma felt her cheeks warm. "Why?" "Because you're the only person in this town who doesn't look at me with pity or try to set me up with their niece." That startled a laugh out of her. "The famous Mapleton matchmaking machine. My mother's a charter member." "Tell me about it. Being a single dad here is like having a target on your back." "What happened?" Emma asked before she could stop herself. "Sorry, that's none of my business." Liam shrugged. "It's not a secret. Mia's mom decided parenthood wasn't for her when Mia was 2. Signed away her rights and moved to California. We haven't heard from her since." "That's awful." "It was, at the time. But honestly, we're better off. Mia deserves someone who wants to be her mother, not someone who resents her existence." Emma watched Mia fearlessly climb to the top of the jungle gym. "She seems like a great kid." "The best," Liam agreed, his voice softening. "Stubborn as hell, though. Wonder where she gets that from." Their conversations became a weekend ritual. Emma found herself looking forward to Saturdays, planning her outings to coincide with Liam and Mia's park visits. They talked about everything and nothing, Liam's work as a contractor, Emma's former life as a dancer, Mia's school adventures. He never asked about her accident or her prognosis, and she was grateful. One rainy Saturday, Emma was surprised to hear a knock at the door. Her mother was at a church function, and she wasn't expecting visitors. She wheeled herself to the door to find Liam and Mia on the porch, both slightly damp. "Park's a washout," Liam explained. "Mia suggested we see if you wanted company instead. We brought games." Mia held up a tattered Monopoly box and a deck of cards. Emma hesitated only briefly before backing up her wheelchair. "Come in. Fair warning, I'm ruthless at Monopoly." The afternoon passed in a blur of board games, laughter, and the kind of easy companionship Emma had forgotten existed. When Mia fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from her competitive Monopoly tactics, Liam helped Emma clean up the scattered game pieces. "Thank you for this," Emma said quietly. "It's been nice." "We should do it again," Liam replied, his voice equally soft. "Maybe without the tiny dictator next time." Emma's heart skipped. "Are you asking me on a date? Would that be so terrible?" She gestured to her wheelchair, to her body that refused to cooperate. "Liam, I'm not. I'm not fit for any man, let alone one with a child. You deserve someone whole." The words hung between them, heavy with Emma's fear and self-loathing. She expected him to backtrack, to offer platitudes about how her disability didn't matter. Instead, his expression hardened. "That," he said firmly, "is the biggest load of crap I've ever heard." Emma blinked, taken aback by his bluntness. "You think being fit for someone means having a perfect body? That's not how this works, Emma. We're all broken in some way. My ex-wife was physically perfect and emotionally empty. Which do you think hurt Mia more? It's not the same." "No, it's not. But here's what I know, you're smart, funny, kind to my daughter, and the strongest person I've met in years." "The wheelchair? It's just a chair. It's not who you are." Tears welled in Emma's eyes. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple. Nothing worth having ever is." He knelt beside her wheelchair, bringing his face level with hers. "I'm not asking for forever, Emma. I'm asking for dinner. One meal where we talk like adults without Monopoly money or a 7-year-old referee." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I haven't been on a date since before the accident. I don't even know if I remember how." Liam reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed the tear from her face. "It's like riding a bike. Except with food and conversation instead of pedaling." Despite herself, Emma laughed. "That's a terrible analogy." "I know. Say yes anyway." And she did. Their first date was at a small Italian restaurant on the edge of town. Liam had called ahead to ensure wheelchair accessibility, but otherwise made no concessions to Emma's disability. He didn't try to help her navigate the space or cut her food or any of the 100 small humiliations she'd come to expect. Instead, he treated her like a woman, desirable, interesting, whole. As weeks turned into months, Emma's physical therapy began showing results. She regained some movement in her left arm, enough to begin using a walker for short distances. Each small victory was celebrated by Liam and Mia with the kind of genuine enthusiasm that made Emma believe in herself again. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Emma had dark days when the pain overwhelmed her, when the future seemed bleak despite her progress. On those days, Liam didn't try to fix her or cheer her up. He simply sat with her, a steady presence that anchored her through the storm. "Why do you stay?" she asked him once, during a particularly difficult week when a setback in therapy had left her despondent. "This isn't what you signed up for." Liam looked at her thoughtfully. "Do you remember what you told Mia when she was struggling with her science project? The one with the bean plants? Emma frowned, confused by the change of subject. I told her that sometimes growth happens underground, where you can't see it. That just because the plant looks the same doesn't mean nothing's happening. Exactly. Emma, I'm not staying despite the hard days. I'm staying because the hard days are when I see who you really are. And that person, stubborn, resilient, occasionally grumpy, is who I'm falling in love with. The words hung between them, unexpected and transformative. It was the first time either had mentioned love. You can't love me, Emma whispered, though her heart raced with hope. Too late, Liam replied simply. Already do. 6 months after their first meeting at the community center, Emma moved out of her mother's house and into a small apartment of her own. It was on the ground floor with widened doorways and accessible fixtures, a place where her wheelchair wasn't an obstacle. Liam and Mia helped her decorate, turning the sterile space into a home filled with color and light. On the day of her housewarming party, Emma stood with her walker in the center of her living room, surveying the small gathering of friends she'd made since returning to Mapleton. Dr. Reeves was deep in conversation with her mother. Mia was showing her school friends the mural she'd helped paint in the spare bedroom that would double as a dance studio, a smaller version of the one Emma had once taught in, adapted for her new capabilities. Penny for your thoughts, Liam said, appearing at her side with a glass of sparkling cider. Emma smiled up at him. I was just thinking about that day at the community center. When I told you I wasn't fit for any man. Ah, yes. One of your more ridiculous statements. You shocked me, you know. I expected pity or awkward reassurance. Not indignation. Liam shrugged. I've never been good at saying what people expect to hear. Thank God for that. Emma set down her glass and reached for his hand. You were right, by the way. I usually am. About what specifically? She laughed and swatted his arm. About being broken not being the same as being unworthy. I think I needed someone to be angry on my behalf before I could stop being angry at myself. Liam's expression softened. You did the hard part, Em. I just refused to let you believe the lies you were telling yourself. Before Emma could respond, Mia bounded over, her curls bouncing. Dad! Emma! Can I show everyone the dance you taught me? Emma exchanged a glance with Liam. The simple routine they'd created together, Emma choreographing from her wheelchair while Liam helped demonstrate the moves, had become Mia's favorite activity. Of course, sweetheart, Emma said. Let me get to my spot. With Liam's steadying hand on her back, Emma made her way to the chair positioned near the cleared space that served as a dance floor. As Mia began her performance, Emma felt Liam's hand squeeze her shoulder gently. Still think you're not fit for any man, he whispered. Emma covered his hand with hers, watching the little girl who had become as dear to her as if she were her own. No, she replied softly. But I'm beginning to think I might be perfect for you too. 1 year to the day after Emma left the hospital in a wheelchair, she walked down the aisle of Mapleton's small chapel on her father's arm. She still used a cane, and probably always would, but she moved with a grace that spoke of hard-won victory. Liam waited at the altar, his eyes never leaving hers, while Mia bounced excitedly in her flower girl dress. As Emma reached him, Liam leaned down to whisper in her ear. Told you so. She laughed, the sound echoing through the chapel. Just this once.